you're showing a lot of visual deficit is the word that she used. I didn't think anything of it a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it was on another day that was what I knew was the turn where they were going to do what they could to get me out of there.
Welcome to the Blind Mom Life podcast. I'm your host, Chelsey Painter Davis, blind wife, mother, and public speaker. I want to invite you to dive deep with my special guests and I as we talk conquering disabilities, cherishing motherhood, and choosing life. Are you ready? Action. All right, so before we get into our awesome interview today with my sweet new friend Christine, I want to talk to you about Monsters University. Okay, you can laugh all you want, but I grew up in the 1990s, and that means that I love Disney Pixar. So for those of you who have never had the privilege of seeing this awesome film, Monsters University is the story of a small green eyeball monster, Mike Wazowski, who has big dreams of becoming a professional scarer in Monstropolis. He is always working harder than everyone else, studying the most, practicing the most, so he never misses a beat in all of his college classes on scaring. And he thinks that if he works harder than anyone else, shows up when other people don't, knows everything other people don't know, that will be enough to push him to the top of the scaring profession. But there's just one problem. Mike's not scary. Like, not even a little bit. Frankly, he's kind of adorable. Just a little green beach ball. And he finds out towards the end of the film that he's not enough. Because of the body that he's born with, something he can never change, he's not enough. I almost always cry at the end of this film when Mike's alone in the human world, really facing down that grief of knowing that all of this work will not make him a scarer. It never will. And that really touches a place in my heart because I love stories. I love the emotional human connection that comes from them. And because of that, my favorite outlet for it has always been theater arts. And I experienced something very similar to what Michael experienced when I was pursuing theater arts in college. So I became obsessed with it when I was just a young girl, when I saw my other students at my school, the older kids, putting together a play about time travel, and then later being taken to see Cinderella on stage by my parents. It was quickly a big passion for me, and I just wanted to be involved so bad. I remember going to shows and not just watching them for enjoyment, just really studying them and trying to learn other people's crafts, the actors, the wardrobe artists, the directors, and really studying what they're doing to try to build my craft as well. And I thought that if I worked harder than everybody else and I showed up when other people didn't, and I had more ideas and had agreed to do any work that was asked of me, I thought that would translate into more opportunities. And I also had a lot of tenacity and perseverance. So I didn't quit when I was told, oh no, sweetie, you're too young for this show. Maybe next time. Oh no, sweetie, you're too old for this show. Maybe a different one. Oh no, the community theater, it's shut down. Oh no, our high school, we just don't really do that sort of thing. Or, oh no, the show's been canceled. We didn't have enough people come to rehearsal. I thought that if I showed up to these auditions with my lines memorized, trying to compensate for the fact that I was blind. I thought if I got all the training that I needed in vocational rehab so I could enter college with confidence, I thought that would show people my grit and tenacity, and I thought that would earn their respect in the theater community. If I really showed them what I could do, not quitting because I'd lost my vision at 19, not giving up on my dream, I thought they'd respect that. But it still didn't stop the department head from sitting down with me and saying, I just don't know where to use you, Chelsey. And it was devastating. It really hurt because I thought I'd proved myself. I thought I'd been enough. I deserved to be there. But I was still excluded. And I hurt just like Michael hurt there because I couldn't make myself not blind. Just like Michael couldn't make himself scary. And I'm really excited to introduce you to another woman who had a very similar experience where she couldn't change her physical body to meet other people's expectations. And she really thought that her passion and her drive would impress others so they'd make space for her. And it didn't. Just like it didn't for me, and just like it didn't for Mike. But that doesn't mean that our stories are over. There is still a final scene. There is still a curtain call. There is still a plan to be had for us. So without further ado, my new friend, Christine.
Okay, Christine, so why don't you share with us your eye condition?
Okay, so it's a congenital condition. So basically, my diagnosis is albinism, which is basically I do not produce melanin in the body. So my hair is white, my skin is white, my eyes are very light blue. And also, melanin is also um, what you need to form your eye structures. So there are things in my eyes that are not even formed. So it causes visual deficit. Also, I have nystagmus, which is where my eyes involuntarily move back and forth. So like positioning my head, I can cause that to not where it's I'm not visible. It doesn't. I don't see that.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, my eyes are without correction 2,300 in one eye, 2,400 in one eye, and with correction about 2,200 to 2,175. So, I mean, this is the way I've seen my whole entire life. So to me, I see well, but obviously I don't because I can't drive. But I'm a person that pretty much driving is the only thing I cannot legally do. If there's anything that is to be done, I will make sure I know how to do it or learn how to do it. So it doesn't keep me from anything like that. Only driving is what it restricts me from doing.
So when you say that your vision is like 2200 with corrective lenses, 2175, so what could you describe what that looks like to people who just don't understand that kind of
I know
terminology?
it's funny because a lot of people ask me that. What do you
Mm-hmm.
see? What do you see? I tell you what I can see far away is I can see colors.
Mm-hmm.
I can see colors far away. Now looking out at your apartment complex, I mean, I can see that there's windows. If a person was standing out there, I wouldn't be able to see their facial expressions or structure until I'm up close to them.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty much everything that I do, I have to see up close. If you like leaves on the trees, I can't see individual leaves. I don't have good depth perception, and I also things I can't see in 3D. So basically, everything just is two dimensional.
Okay. So do you use magnifiers?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I have to use assistive devices. So like on computer, I'm very computer savvy.
Mm-hmm.
But I the magnifier is built into it. Now years ago, 20 years ago, you had to install those types of software.
Mm-hmm.
Now you don't have to do it. I could get on any computer and enable the magnifier and it would work. Also, with anything on paper, I do use assistive devices such as magnifiers. I have a video magnifier. It's called a video magnifier. It works perfect. So basically, I can enable with those devices to see like everybody else does.
Mm-hmm. When did you first like note if you were born with albinism and so you grew up with this condition? When did you first notice that you were seeing things differently than other kids?
Um, I'm probably in school. I didn't notice it. I know that I would have to walk up to the blackboard to see what was written, but I noticed that the students, the other students, they were able to just sit at their desk and write. And I'm like, that's weird that they can see that without having to walk up like I do, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, yeah, probably school age is when I started to notice it. And of course, I stand out
Mm-hmm.
because am so light. And that was not always a good thing in elementary school because, I'm different and that's who kids pick on. So I had to hold it. Not only was I light and kind of stand out, I
Mm-hmm.
kind of stood out, but I would have to hold everything, up close to my face so that I could see it. And I didn't realize I was doing that. I just literally, in my little mind, I'm focusing, and that's part of my issue is when my eyes move. That is 50% of my deficit, is because my
Mm-hmm.
eyes will not slow down enough to focus, and what is focused on, my brain doesn't translate those messages. My brain will never translate those messages.
Mm-hmm. So what was it like trying to keep up, like academically, socially, as a kid, just being having such a different way that you're viewing the world, but being raised alongside just everybody else?
Socially, I would say was the hardest part. I did get picked on and made fun of a lot. Bullies had their opportunities. If you don't do this, I'm gonna beat you up, and then they'd call out names, and that was very hurtful. But as far as academically, I've always done really well, and I do always try to overcompensate with things that I do because I want to say, hey, I can do things like everybody else. But as a child, as an elementary age, was probably the hardest because you're small. Here to come up against stuff like that seems so big.
Mm-hmm.
But academically, I kept up fine. Once I got to a certain age, once I got to be a teenager, those comments didn't bother me anymore. And what's great about a visual deficit is if there's people making fun or making faces or saying things behind your back, you don't see it. So
I feel like that's
I'm
what
okay with that.
that's how I feel about like rude like social media comments. I'm like, I just don't have to look at them, so you're not going to affect
Right.
me. So
Right. Exactly. I'm totally okay with it. So once I got to be a teenager, those things do stick with you, but you just learn. I'm better than that. I
Mhm.
I can do whatever I put my mind to do, and I didn't let those things stop me anymore.
So when did you first get interested in medical stuff, or like was it like literature? Was it like just seeing someone at the hospital? Like what got you into that?
Well, once I started having my children, I ended up being a single mother and having to provide for my children. And I did several things. I cleaned houses, but I always was and still am a respite caregiver for a foster mother that I know, just for one, where I take care of babies who are level threes. They have tubes, they have monitors, and I also have been in homes for friends, like caregiving for their mother, staying overnight, several places over the years.
You
And I
mean like
just
elder?
love it.
When
Yeah,
you say
elderly.
elder care?
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, elder parents, and grandparents. And I've done it. I can't even count how many. There's been so many. And usually they're small stints. It's usually someone who is, going to pass not too long, but
Mm.
they need someone in the home and those types of things. And absolutely loved it. I absolutely loved caring for people, still do. Love these little babies that I get to love on. So that is really what got me interested. And I love the medical language, the terminology, just everything about it, the science of it. I just love all of it.
So how did you decide that you wanted to go to nursing school?
Well, I decided, well, I can feed babies through tubes. I can monitor them. I can, change dressings. There's all kind of things I've learned how to do. So why not?
Mm-hmm.
Why not try it? Anything that I've ever put my mind to, I do it. So I I got myself registered in college. I did all the prerequisites to get into intro to nursing
Mm-hmm.
and went from there. And I loved it.
How are you doing in school? Like when you started nursing, were you having trouble keeping up academically, or
Academically, no, never. I was making straight A's.
in
I
nursing school?
in nursing
That
school.
is so hard.
Yeah,
As
I
an art major, I'm like, oh my gosh.
well, the first because you do all your prerequisites and then you have to take microbiology. And another thing though, before I did the nursing years ago, I did put myself through college for medical transcription. So where
Mm-hmm.
I'm listening to doctors dictate, I'm typing up legal documents and sending them to them. That's what I did that for 6 years also.
Mm-hmm.
When I raised my kids, I cleaned houses. I was a transcriptionist and I did that at home. And I also did the foster respite care.
Mm-hmm.
So, with all of those things, I already had a lot of medical background because I had to take anatomy and physiology,
Right.
pharmacology, medical terminology, all those things to do the transcription. So, I kind of just had a little bit of an in right there. So, when I had to take you have to take what they call a TEAS test,
What is
which
that?
it stands for something acronym. Don't quote me what it is right here, but it's
It's
something
okay.
that you have to do. You qualify and you can start nursing school. And I did what I had to do, and I got in, and I got accepted. So happiest day of my life when I got that letter. I was so happy. This was back in 2013 or
Mm-hmm.
so.
How old were you at the time? You said
I was
you were a
about
single mom.
45. I was about 40 in my mid 40s. Yeah, I was
Mm-hmm.
about in my mid 40s. But you know what? Like I said, I've always been very determined. If that's something I want to do, I'm gonna make that happen.
How many
So
kids did you have when you were trying to go into when you got
I
accepted for
I
nursing
already
school?
had 7.
You already had 7
Mm-hmm.
children.
So I have 7 altogether. They're all grown now. But they got me through a lot. They all got me through a lot. So yeah, so I had just recently got with my husband that I'm with now.
Mm-hmm.
We got married in January of 14, but that's about the time I started nursing school.
So how are things going in nursing school? You said you were keeping up academically. How is it going with your peers and your professors?
Well, peers really well. I didn't have any issues with my peers. They were always very helpful. We all got along really well, but probably about 2 months in to nursing school. And this is after intro to nursing. This is after so much that I've already completed.
Mm-hmm.
You actually start nursing school, and about 2 months in, we were. It was one of the nights where we were looking into the eyes. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
let's look in everybody's eyes. Let's look at the structures. Let's all get familiar. So we were looking into mine, and of course, you got a lot to see when you're looking into mine.
Mm.
Not only are the eyes moving, but the structures in my eyes are see-through. They're translucent.
Okay.
So they look very different than everyone else's. There's no pigment there. So one of the professors was looking and she's like, wow. She's like, this this is showing a lot of you're showing a lot of visual deficit is the word that she used. I didn't think anything of it a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it was on another day that was what I knew was the turn where they were going to do what they could to get me out of there. Instead of coming alongside me, I think they were trying to push me out.
Mm-hmm.
We were drawing, it was my first time learning to draw up a needle. And I didn't get the liquid drawn up. There was either an empty bottle or there was air in the bottle or something.
Mm-hmm.
First time I ever did it. So it wasn't like they came alongside me and say, hey, we understand you don't see as well. It didn't happen like that. They took me in the office and they said, we're noticing that we noticed what you did. And they're just going on about it and saying, that they're not sure how this was going to go for me. And I literally started crying like so hard. And
Mm-hmm.
I said, why I'm crying? Not because of what you see, but because you're never going to look at me the same again from this point on. And I literally said that to them.
Mm-hmm.
So little did I know that was absolutely I was absolutely correct. And so over the next month or so, they pulled me from clinicals. I was doing clinicals at Lake Wales Hospital, and my patients loved me.
Mm-hmm.
They made me do things in the lab. They also were videotaping me
Did they tell
doing
you they were
things.
videotaping
They
you?
literally, they didn't ask my permission. They just were doing it. We're going to be videotaping you.
Were they videotaping other students as well, or
No,
just?
no,
Oh, just
just
you.
me,
Oh,
just me.
you were supposed to be okay
And
with that.
then, yeah, there was a final, okay, so this is what you're going to do. We're going to have somebody actually in the bed. You're going to do this. You're going to do this. You're going to change the bed. You're going to do all this. So I started really strong, and
Mm-hmm.
I was doing well, but they made sure that I had a regular blood pressure cuff where you have to look at the little lines instead of the digital one. They
Okay.
also made sure that I had the temperature with the mercury where you had to shake it and look at the little lines. So it
I have
was,
been in the hospital multiple times, and I have never seen
have you
anyone
ever,
use a
no,
mercury thermometer.
everyone rolls around the digitals, but
Mm-hmm.
I was not allowed to use those. So,
Were the other students allowed to use those?
yes.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
again,
So again,
extra special treatment for you.
yeah. So I didn't give up though. I did my best. I did what I could. And so the last thing that happened was they pulled me in for a meeting about 2 weeks later, and they said, okay, so we're just going to let you know, we're not going to pass you. So you can either do one of two things. You can withdraw with your high GPA and have a W on your transcript, or you can stay and have an F on your transcript and
Wow.
finish out the classes. So I said, I'm going to go. And part of me regrets not fighting it. I probably could have gone to administration with it, because I really do feel I was being discriminated
Right.
against. But I was in my mid 40s. Um, I just was tired. I was tired. I had been fighting with them for about 2 months,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just tired emotionally and everything else. And I do have chronic back issues, and I just couldn't fight it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up walking away.
How did you recover from that emotionally? Like, you put all this time and all this investment into going to nursing school. You've worked so hard. You feel like you deserve to be there. Like,
It was a
what's
lot of tears. I will tell you that.
Mhm.
Probably for a few months, a lot of tears. But I knew in the back of my mind, okay, this isn't it. This is not the end. I've just got to figure out what I'm going to do. So
Mhm.
I had tossed around a few things. Again, I had done transcription, medical transcription. So I do have a lot of medical knowledge and things like that. So I ended up going, after many months. I will say emotionally it was hard on me. I will
Mhm.
say
Yeah.
probably for 6 months, I probably cried every day, because I did work super hard to get there. And I felt like I was a failure because everything I've ever set out to do, I do, but
So
that
Mhm.
it
So they
wasn't gonna
kicked
come.
you out and you felt like the failure.
Right. I felt like the failure. I feel like, there are deaf nurses, there's nurses without limbs, there's doctors with the same issues, and there's always accommodations, especially now,
Mhm.
in this day and time, there's always an accommodation. I feel like none of that was offered, and that's what it just hurt. I know, and deep down I didn't fail because I knew I tried as hard as I could, but at the same time, the end result was failure in my mind
Mhm.
because I wasn't a nurse. It's funny because my kids, because of all the medical knowledge, they'll say, "Mom, you're a doctor. Can you tell us how this works?" And I'm like,
Kids are
so
so funny.
they're hilarious. They still do it, and they're all grown up. It's funny,
Mhm.
but I knew I was going to do something, and the first thing that I looked into doing was physical therapy because I
Really?
thought, I love kids, and I love,
Mhm.
matter of fact, on the respite, babysitting that I do for the foster babies, a lot of times I would go to the therapy with the foster mother,
Mm.
and I would watch what they did. And I thought this is so interesting. So when I went to the college to look into that, I noticed that there was a lot of really tiny, small measurements that you have to do, that it's not
Yes.
just hands on. So
With
I
the
thought,
goniometer.
yeah, I thought, this is not it. This is not it. But I'm going to keep looking.
The fascinating part now is that they have, my husband is a physical therapist assistant,
Oh,
and I
that's
know
right.
that they've invented these digital goniometers, and you can scan the joints with a laser, and then it puts the measurements
Oh,
into the digital
wow.
recording. He actually has one in the closet somewhere. I bought it for him for Christmas
Oh,
last
that's
year.
cool.
And it is, so even that, like, you were intimidated by these small numbers, like that's already not even an issue anymore for physical therapists.
Right. And, but in my mind, I kind of PTSD
Right,
from
of
everything I had
course.
gone through. And it's
Of
like,
course.
better not try that. So then one of my best friends, she was like, why don't you go into billing and coding? And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, yeah, that sounds good, because having assistive devices for I'm really good on computers. So I
Mm-hmm.
thought I'll be on the computer. I thought that's a really good match for me. So I enrolled myself. I am certified in billing and coding. And I picked myself back up and I learned how to do it, got my certification, and went to work to find a job.
Yeah, that's really cool. Are you still like, so there's this thing I see in a lot of nurses. It's just this really heart for people and caring for people. Do you feel like you get to do that as a in billing and coding, or do you feel like it's just not quite the same thing that you were looking for?
Well, I will say two things. First thing is, I'm still doing caregiving on the side. I still am
Mm-hmm.
foster respite. And I have in the past, like I said, the elder care. So I am doing some of that because I do have a heart for people like that. Um, so the job that I'm at currently, and I guess we'll get to that, has evolved into more patient activity. So I did get a job initially as billing and coding, and I am still working in that, but the job has evolved over the 7 years that I've been there
Mm-hmm.
to include some of that.
Yeah, so you're still working with the kids. Do you feel like, um, does this help you like go back and like think about that situation and kind of see like, okay, maybe that's not where God put me, maybe, or is it still just really painful to look back and see how unfairly you were treated?
Um, yes and no.
Mm-hmm.
I will always feel that I was unfairly treated and not giving the proper chances and the accommodations that I would have done fine
Mm-hmm.
with. But I do, like I said, my back issues, standing for 12 hours would probably not be a good thing for me,
Mm-hmm.
given the physical issues that I have. But I'm past that. I feel like I do believe that God has orchestrated and directed my life, and it is going exactly how it should have.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have regret in that way.
Mm-hmm.
I do feel like I am exactly where I need to be, and I do feel like um, my medical hunger and drive is being fulfilled, is being met.
What do you think, looking back on your situation with nursing school, what do you think that they should have done differently with you? Like, I know that as a blind person myself, like, I know sometimes people get really freaked out with us and they just don't know how to handle it. But what would your recommendation be? What do you wish that they would have done different?
I wish that, let's say, just in comparison, like, to have a job like I have now. So I'm going to do a comparison. To have a job like I do now. So when I started 7 years ago, I was doing specifically billing. I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing deposits. I'm doing stuff that you got to be able to see for. But I'm also upstairs. I'm away from patients. I am talking to them on the phone, but I'm not exactly with them. So over the last 2 years, I have become a front desk lead.
Okay.
So I'm lead. So I do deal with patient problems, patient bills, but I pretty much do a little bit of everything
Mm-hmm.
where I'm at. And but back in college, so when I started there, what my point was, when I started there, they're like, what do you need? What do you need? You need this software, you need this, you need that. We'll help you in whatever way we can. Because I told it when I interviewed for that job, I said to her, I said, I will let you know this. It will take me a little while
Mm-hmm.
and to do things for a little while before I get the hang of things. I have to familiarize myself
Right.
with my surroundings, with what I'm doing. I'm very good with the familiar, but not as good with the unfamiliar. So I said, I need some time, but I will tell you this. If you give me that time, and I did actually work for them for 3 months for free
Oh,
because
wow.
I wanted them to see what I could do without them wondering, well, she can't see. Is she going to be able to do deposits and, things like that? And they did, and they hired me before the 3 months was over with. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But they came alongside me and they were willing to do whatever they had to do to help me.
Mm-hmm.
In the situation I was in back in 2013, there was none of that. If the teachers would have said, listen, we do understand that you don't see as well as the other students. What can we do to make this better? Can we magnify this for you? Can
Mm-hmm.
we get this device for you?
Yeah.
It would have made 100% difference in how things turned out. But that was never offered. And again, in the big scheme of things, God knew what He was doing, and I trust Him, and I I believe that He directs my steps. But I do believe that they could have come along beside me,
Mm-hmm.
and that was not done.
What do you, what would you say to someone who finds themselves in your position, like, or a similar position, like maybe they were just told, like, hey, your baby's been genetically tested, they're going to have albinism, or maybe they themselves have albinism and they have all these plans that they want to do and they feel like they're not being supported or they can't do them. What can you speak to that? Like, what is it like to face the world in that situation?
Um, it is. I think when you're little, it's the hardest
Mm-hmm.
because you're against this big world that you can't see very well, and you know you just kind of have to take whatever is put at you. And I will say, I mean, I had a wonderful mom and dad and wonderful family and support system, so that helps too.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say to not ever to always know that there is a way. There are assistive devices, there is a way, and no matter what you want to do, you can achieve that. You can absolutely achieve that. You have albinism, you need to watch yourself in the sun a little bit because you're going to burn real easy. But other than that, and other than driving, that was hard, knowing that I was
Mm-hmm.
never going to drive because I really grew up. I had Corvette cars and stuff on my mirror, and I'm like, I'm gonna see. God's gonna heal that, and I'm gonna see when
Oh.
I'm 16. But it didn't happen, and that's probably the biggest thing that I wish I could change in life.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I mean, I raised 7 children. I have almost 11
It's
grandchildren,
amazing.
and one going to be born in June, and I could not be happier with my life. And I make it. You make your life what you want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have bumps like I had, you just get back up and you keep going.
That is, thank you so much,
Yeah, you're
Christine, for sharing that
welcome.
with us. That is so helpful and that's so encouraging. Is there anything else that you want to share that you feel led that you want to tell anybody about your story?
Um, I I just like I said, I am now happily married at the end of a long life, 55 years old, and know that everything in my life was orchestrated to get me to where I am today. And just for anyone facing, the world when you're different, don't let it don't let it bother you. Don't let it change you. Just be and do what you want to do,
Mm-hmm.
and God through God you can do anything.
I love how Christine never quit. I love, love, love that there was a place for her that she could facilitate the healing of others, a place in the medical field where she could be helpful, even if others thought that that wasn't the right thing for her. It's so hard when we're knocked down and we're told, hey, you're not welcome. Hey, we don't want you here. You're not a part of this club. That hurts. whether it's because of your disability, like mine and Christine's, or whether it's because of any other reason. It really hurts. But we are knit together in our mother's wombs for a purpose. We are fearfully and wonderfully made. And God has a plan for the passions that He's put inside of you. And God has a plan for the health challenges or the disabilities or the drawbacks that we might see in ourselves. It is not something that is meaningless. And our passion and our creativity and our thoughts, they're not meaningless either. And I love how we get to see Christine fulfilling those passions just in a slightly different way, but still just as helpful, just as loving, just as passionate as she's ever been, even if the place she thought she needed to be, the place she wanted to be, was kept out of her reach. She still gets to make an impact, inspiring and helping others. And I just think that is such a beautiful story.
Time for the Ask Me Anything part of the podcast. So the first question that I have for you is always phrased very delicately by others, but the gist of it is, why did you pick theater arts as a major in college when it is such a visual medium of art if you're visually impaired? So the answer to that question is, I grew up sighted. I love theater. It's been something I've been very passionate about since I was in about the second grade when I saw my first play at school. And I loved it so much. It has been a lifelong dream of mine to be involved in. I found many different ways to do this. I did plays in high school. I started a community theater with my mother when I was about 15. And even when I would be on other projects with other people, I would always ask the director, like, hey, can I help with something? Hey, can I be your assistant? And I would study their technique and their methods of production. And I just found it really fascinating the way they would approach projects, the solutions that they would have. It was always very interesting to me. So when I lost my vision my sophomore year of college, it wasn't really an option to me to just give up on something I had been so passionate about for so long. So after I received my rehabilitation training and felt really ready to go back into college, I was perfectly comfortable with being in theater arts. And it has caused problems sometimes because a lot of other people just don't get that. They don't really understand how I could be involved. And I find it best to just show them my work. I remember doing one student production. I did Wiley and the Hairy Man. And some of the feedback that I got from the audience, because I was the director, was they couldn't believe how awesome the show was, even though I was blind. It just blew their mind that I could put together something that great and that attention grabbing and energetic and fun and aesthetically beautiful. And I couldn't see it all. But the thing about a show is that it's not all about the visuals. We say the phrase right now, how I'm going to go see a movie or I'm going to go watch a play. But the way society used to phrase it was, I'm going to go hear a play, because so much is going on an auditory level. And there's so much just in the energy of that and the life of the actors. You can really get it even if you're in the back of the audience in the tiny section and the actors look like ants on the stage. You can still get the show. So the visuals are often a plus. And even though there are things that are very important visually, like the aesthetics of the set coloring and the costume design, and all of these components that are going on that help heighten and enhance the story, those are very easy for me to dial into just by asking assistants a few questions. So when I was the director of the show, I didn't do the whole show by myself. I still had a team of actors. I had an assistant director. I had people helping me that I could say things to them like, hey, I'm going to grab the paint for the sun. Am I holding the yellow paint or the orange paint? I know that a sun is yellow. I know what colors things need to be to translate a message. And even though I can't see those colors myself, I can still put together a really great story that is really well-rounded, with the visuals and the audio components. And so I just really loved doing that. And that was not something I was willing to give up on just because of a barrier that maybe other people thought was there that kind of wasn't. So the next question I have for you is in that same creative vein. How do you dress your kids in the morning and make sure they match? Most mornings I don't, because I don't really care, to be perfectly honest. They're toddlers. My children are 3 and 1. And if their clothes don't match, who cares? Like, who's making fun of them? Their little baby friends? Like, it's not a thing. And so there might be some times where we're going somewhere like church or to an event, and I do want my kids to look really put together for a picture or something like that. And so I will ask my daughter, I'm saying, what color is this shirt? Or what color are these pants? Or if it's really important, I'll have my husband help me. But I kind of just don't care most of the time. We spend a lot of time at home, and then I really, really don't care because it's just clothes. Like, they're clean, they're happy, they're fed, they're healthy. What does it matter what clothes they're wearing? And it's just never been that big of a deal for me. But it does help that a lot of the clothes have different textures and cutout patterns on them. So it is really easy to know that my son's button down polo is navy. So I'll just grab a pair of jeans. I'm like, okay, fine, that matches. He looks fine. He's not wearing like Ninja Turtle pants with a Mickey Mouse t-shirt. But even if he was, who cares? So it's just something that I don't usually let get to me that much. And I just kind of go with whatever they want to wear that day, because most of the time, if I try to pick out an outfit for my daughter, she doesn't want to wear that anyway. And we have a meltdown over clothing. And that's just not something that I'm going to get too bent out of shape about. If you want to see more content from me, you can follow me on Facebook, X, Instagram, YouTube, or you can check me out on my website, chelseapainterdavis.com. That is a great place to sign up for my email list, submit questions for Ask Me Anything, or recommend a friend for the podcast. Do you know someone with an inspiring story? I would love to hear about it. Also, if you like what I do and you want me to come share at one of your events, you can click on the Book Now tab of the website and you can fill out a speaking request. I would love to connect with you.
Thank you so much for hanging around through the end of the episode. I hope today that we have shown you that all life is worth living. Just like in the book of Esther, where God paints a beautiful portrait from the background, God is painting a beautiful portrait with your life, and we can learn so much from each other if we only share our stories. Whenever it feels like the darkness is pressing in, just remember the words of Jesus Christ in John chapter 9. As long as I am in the world, I am the light.
Share us a little bit, share with, wow, that was bad. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. Let's delete that last 30 seconds of my life.